Against stupidity, we are defenseless. That is a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, an anti-Nazi German theologian who was executed by Adolf Hitler in the final days of the Nazi regime in 1945. We were reminded of that quote in a recent New York Times column by David Brooks, the conservative columnist David Brooks, writing about stupidity. The column was written at the end of the first week of the new Trump presidency, and in it, David Brooks wrote, "We're going to have to learn a lot about stupidity over the next 4 years." It was, for me, the most welcome entry I've read in the New York Times in a while, because one of the words I have been using to describe Donald Trump's actions and statements since he first started lying about President Obama's birth certificate in 2011 is stupid. And it was a lonely position in the world of political commentary then to use the word stupid when most of the political media was still awed by Donald Trump's completely fraudulent image as a successful business person. And they all believed that it's impossible for a successful business guy to be stupid. David Brooks wrote, "I define stupidity as behaving in a way that ignores the question, what would happen next?" Donald Trump appeared to ignore that question when he threatened massive illegal tariffs against Canada and Mexico over the weekend. And right on schedule Monday morning, the stock market told Donald Trump just how stupid his idea was. David Brooks writes, "Stupidity is the tendency to take actions that hurt you and the people around you." And with the stock price of Elon Musk's Tesla dropping Monday morning, along with most other stock prices, Donald Trump then abandoned his threats of tariffs against Mexico and Canada. And before that happened, in his New York Times column on stupidity, David Brooks wrote, "My big prediction for this administration, it will churn out a steady stream of stupid policies, and when the consequences of those policies begin to hit Trump's approval rating, he will flip-flop, diminish, or abandon those policies." And that's exactly what Donald Trump did with his stupid tariff idea on Monday. David Brooks explained why Donald Trump doesn't have the slightest inhibition about being stupid publicly. David Brooks wrote, "People who behave stupidly are unaware of the stupidity of their actions. Incompetent people don't have the skills to recognize their own incompetence." A Montreal newspaper needed only one word to convey the essential truth of Donald Trump's threatened trade war with Canada: stupid. In his column, David Brooks said, "Stupidity is nearly impossible to oppose because stupid actions don't make sense. And so reasonable arguments thrown at stupid ideas just bounce off a solid wall of stupidity." But that is the job of our first guest tonight, opposing stupidity. When you listen to Democrats in Congress railing against what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing, they can sound ineffectual because you know that every rational thing the opposition is saying to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk is just bouncing off that solid wall of stupidity. And so the leaders of the Democratic Party in Congress, like Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leaders of the House of Representatives, who will be our first guest tonight, have to run the risk of sounding ineffectual to you when they rise up in opposition to taking life-saving medicine from babies around the world, as Donald Trump and Elon Musk have done this week. What are you going to do about it is the question that every Democratic member of Congress is getting from their constituents. What are you going to do about it? The Democrats in Congress are facing something that no other opposition party in Congress has ever faced in the history of this country: a president joined every day by the richest person in the world in publicly and flagrantly violating the law. When President Richard Nixon wanted to break the law, he did it in private. He didn't go out and do it publicly. He didn't do it at microphones. President Ronald Reagan, before he was ever elected to public office, was a very vocal opponent of Medicare when Congress was debating whether to enact Medicare in 1965. Ronald Reagan said Medicare would destroy America. Ronald Reagan said, Behind it will come other federal programs that will invade every area of freedom as we have known it in this country, until one day, as Norman Thomas said, we will awake to find that we have socialism. Ronald Reagan was an anti-Medicare fanatic. And when Ronald Reagan became president, he was the first Republican president who campaigned for the job as an opponent, not just of the Democratic candidate, but as an opponent of government itself. He told jokes about how bad government was, about how government got everything wrong. But Ronald Reagan would not dare to try to abolish Medicare with a so-called executive order. Ronald Reagan would not dare to fire all of the professionals working on Medicare in the executive branch of the government and replace them with idiots who hate Medicare and don't know how it works. Ronald Reagan wouldn't do that because he knew that would be stupid and illegal. Democrats spent days publicly arguing against the Trump-threatened illegal tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Democrats spent days trying to teach voters that this would cost them enormous amounts of money and increase prices. During the presidential campaign, Kamala Harris tried to explain to people that the tariffs Donald Trump was threatening would cost them thousands of dollars a year. And none of that got through. And everything the Democrats said in opposition to the threatened Trump tariffs over the weekend turned out to be a complete waste of time, because all it took was an hour Monday morning